Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll tell you about the NASA Mars mission, so let's begin. Since the late 1940s, scientists and aerospace engineers have been looking into whether or not people could live on Mars. This is part of a larger goal to learn more about the planet. Several people have also said that Phobos and Deimos, two moons of Mars, should be studied. Several long-term plans have been put forward, such as moving people to the world and changing its environment. NASA, Russia, Boeing, and SpaceX are some of the groups that have talked about sending people to Mars. As of 2023, humans were the only ones who could land and move around on Mars. The moon is the farthest people have ever been from Earth. At the start of the 1950s, plans were made for projects that would send people to explore. Most people think planned flights will happen between 10 and 30 years after the first copy of the plan is made. In the area of space exploration, many groups and space agencies have come up with ideas for crewed trips to Mars. Here are some ideas for missions to Mars with people on board. There have been many ideas for these crews, such as scientific trips, which a small group of 2 to 8 people would visit Mars for a few weeks or longer, or a permanent presence on the Red Planet. It was also thought that by 2020, people would be able to use mechanical technology to recreate trips to Mars. State space projects have been trying for a long time to learn more about Mars by sending robots there. When Mariner 4 flew by Mars in 1965, this goal was first met. Since the 1880s, science fiction has been full of stories about people going to Mars. Mars is a popular place for stories about exploring and living on other planets to take place in books, comics, movies, and other forms of media. The story makes up the idea that a Martian is someone or something that lives on Mars. During the synodic period, Delta 5, which is another name for the amount of energy needed to go from one circle to the next, is at its lowest. Since it takes 2 years and 2 months to get to Mars from Earth, most trips are planned to start during one of the launch windows. Mars' path isn't perfectly round, so every 15 years the amount of energy it needs during low energy times changes. When things are going well, only half as much energy is needed as when they are not. When rockets were launched in 1969 and 1971, it was one of the worst times of the 20th century. Between 1986 and 1988, there was another low point, and then the cycle started up again. The next launch with low energy will happen in 2033. Several different kinds of missions have been suggested, such as the Croco Flypast, opposition class missions, and conjunction class missions. The best way to get to Mars with the least amount of energy is through a Hohmann transfer orbit. Using this way, it takes about 9 months to get from Earth to Mars, 500 days, 16 months on Mars to wait for a chance to come back to Earth, and another 9 months to get back to Earth. It would take 34 months to make this trip. Less complicated trips to Mars could take between 400 and 450 days, which is less than 15 months, but we would need a lot more energy. If on-orbit staging was used, a trip to Mars and back could be done in 245 days, which is about 8 months. In 2014, someone came up with the idea of capturing rockets, which could save fuel and give more options for launching than the Hohmann. If the Croco Grand Tour were finished, it would take less than a year for a human spaceship to get close enough to Mars and Venus while it was going around the Sun. As part of some mission plans, there have been talks about the chance of landing a spacecraft that could do flyby missions to Mars. This type of spacecraft is called a flyby excursion lander. In 1966, R. Titus came up with the idea for this mission, which was to involve a short-stay lander ascent vehicle that would split off from a parent Earth-Mars transfer ship before crossing over Mars. This mission was supposed to happen in 1966. The Ascent-Descent rover would get to Mars faster and be able to either rest on the planet or go all the way around it. Depending on how it was built, it could last on its own for anywhere from 10 to 30 days before it needs to be moved back to the main moving truck. In the 1980s, it was thought that using aerobraking on Mars could cut the amount of mass needed for a trip from Earth to Mars by up to 50%. Because of this, spaceships that move between planets and landers that go to Mars use air to slow down. One of the biggest problems with colonizing Mars is that there aren't enough money resources. People thought it would cost about $500 billion in 2010, but the real cost could be a lot higher than that. When early space travel started in the late 1950s, it was done both to make a political statement and to learn more about the solar system. Through the 1960s and into the early 1970s, people kept looking into space. But this turned out to be expensive and not possible in the long run. Now, there's a bigger focus on working together across countries. Several countries are working together to build and open the International Space Station and the Lunar Gateway, which is still in the planning stages. Some people think that the huge cost of sending people to Mars is not worth the instant benefits and that the money would be better spent on other projects, like sending robots there. Some of these people think that the money would be better used for other tasks. People who support people going into space think that having a constant presence in space would be a symbolic act that would get more people interested in the project and, in the long run, lead to more international cooperation. A lot of people think that long-term space travel is the only way for humans to stay alive. If more people were interested in space tourism, sending people to Mars might be cheaper. As the space tourism business and technology keep getting better, it seems possible that the cost of sending people to other planets will go down in the future. Computers were hard to use, expensive, and hard to find when they were only used for science research and didn't play a big role in big business. Also, they were pretty big. In the history of personal computers, there's a concept that's very close to this one. As the market grew, home gadgets got better at what they could do. When many homes in the West and other developed countries started using these devices for entertainment like computer games and to buy travel and entertainment tickets, their prices dropped by a large amount. The United States government is now working on developing the technology needed for trips to Mars. However, there's no plan to finish the project and send people to Mars by the middle of the 2030s, as originally planned. NASA has been told by the president to send people to Mars by the year 2033, but many experts think it would be better to wait until 2035 or even until the late 1930s. NASA engineers are looking into the chance of making bricks out of crushed Martian dirt. They're doing a study that one day people will be able to live on Mars. Even though the long-term goal of the European Space Agency, or ESA, is to take people into space, the ESA has not yet built a spaceship that can carry people into space. It has already sent robot rovers like the ExoMars rovers to Mars, and it will soon send the next probe. That's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and comment down your thoughts on this. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching this video.